I've always prided myself in being able to find the absolute limit of every suspension system I get my hands on. That is, at least until I met my match in the Bilstein 8112 DSA Plus coilovers. Now, does that mean they're absolutely right for you and your Bronco? Well, you'll have to stay tuned to find out. I'm Sean Bowman. This is the Shock Surplus Shop. So let's talk some shocks. Holy cow! Nothing stops these things. For those of you who are new here to the Shock Surplus party, we like to test every suspension system we carry on our own vehicles so we can provide real world data so you guys can figure out if they're right for you. And well, brother, if you can swing these Bilstein 8112s for your 21 plus Bronco, I think they're gonna be right for a lot of people. In case you haven't heard us rave about these 8112s before, they're a pretty darn advanced set of shocks, so let's talk about some of that fancy schmancy tech. These coilovers use a 2.65-inch diameter threaded body design and are position sensitive, but unlike many of the other position sensitive coilovers out there, they have a full-size 60 millimeter piston. They use what Bilstein calls a jounce cutoff and a rebound cutoff, or a JCO and RCO, which basically are a two-stage progressive hydraulic bump stock at the end of their stroke on compression and a single stage on rebound. This creates three distinct ride zones on compression and two on rebound. Basically, that big 60 millimeter primary working piston is valved in tune, which is optimal for most of the driving most people do. And then they give you that JCO and RCO to give you that little bit of something extra at the end of your stroke to soften harsh bottom outs or harsh top out. Where a internal or external bypass shock would be bleeding off damping force within the primary ride zone and then steadily adding it back in as you compress or extend out of it, the Bilstein design allows them to give you the optimal damping force in the ride zone. And then the JCO and RCO provide far more damping force than should ever be possible of a shock of this diameter. On top of all the features packed into the shock bodies themselves, these coilovers have 10 settings of high-speed compression adjustment, 20 settings of low-speed compression, and 10 for that JCO, so you can basically adjust the stiffness for the last few inches of travel when you're about to bottom out. These seem to have about the widest range of adjustment that I have at least felt on an adjustable shock, and the adjustments were super precise, so it was incredibly easy for me to get them dialed in for my preferences and for the terrain we were hitting. In fact, this is the first time I haven't immediately had to go to the maximum settings on a set of adjustable shocks. At no point did I ever feel the need to go to all the way soft or all the way stiff. But if you are an absolute madman, I'm telling you, you got to be crazy to do this. Bilstein does give you a tool for the high-speed compression knob to make it easier to get to those last two clicks, because, well, brother, it can be a little hard to do. Another sweet addition to these shocks was Bilstein used a finned reservoir design, which is obviously doing a heck of a lot for dissipating heat. I was able to hot lap them back and forth through the whoops for like 30 minutes straight, and I didn't notice any fade. Those reservoirs are mostly aluminum, but the bodies are largely steel, so technically corrosion could eventually happen, but Bilstein sprays their super sweet Evo gray coating, which is a lot like Cerakote, over their zinc plating, so I'm pretty confident they should hold up even in the wettest and saltiest of environments. Now, we've been talking all pluses here, but even the best set of shocks, which these Bilsteins may very well be, are prone to having some flaws. And the only serious flaw we had with these, or our only serious complaint we had with these, are the lengths, in that they're not much longer fully extended and about the same length fully compressed as the stock Sasquatch shocks. At no point was I hurting for more travel when I was really letting her eat. But when things slowed down and got more technical, I definitely was feeling that they were a little down on flex or articulation compared to something like the Dobinsons, and especially the Icons, which have notably more travel. Additionally, since they're pretty much the same length as stock when fully compressed, it's gonna be hard to clear 37s, which is a little bit of a disappointment because I think a lot of you guys out there who are spending this money on a set of shocks might also be spending a lot of money on some big tires. So if you're thinking about running larger than a 35, you're probably gonna have to hack up your fenders or do a body lift or maybe get some sweet fiberglass. That said, we still saw travel increases over stock, and having to trim a little bit for 37s to get all the performance they have on tap really isn't a huge compromise, at least in my book. Now, this isn't necessarily a negative because when we're talking about lift heights, we really think less is more, but these 81 talls are definitely designed around less lift than most of the other coilovers out there. Actual lift heights and the range of ride height adjustment will vary based on how many doors you have and what package you got with your Bronco. So check the description below if you want to see exactly how much lift you can expect. In terms of spring rate, I think a lot of you two-door guys are really going to have to add a lot of weight to need a stiffer set of springs. But if you want any lift at all out of your four-door after you've added some load, particularly in the rear, you might consider changing those springs out for something stiffer. Now, the front springs are a flat ground, 13-inch ID, 16-inch long springs, so there's tons of options there. The rears are progressive, but we know on good hand that Dobinson rear springs for their MRR shocks will work, so you might be able to get a stiffer option there. All right, enough tech specs. Let's get to the good stuff. The shocks are on and we're giving them a test on the street. I've had some time to play with the clicks and they really do make a big difference on the road. Now, when you're spending this money on an off-road suspension system, you are expecting it to perform very well off-road, but a lot of the stuff that makes these shocks perform great on the trail make them feel even better on the road. So let's talk about it. First, let's talk about my settings. I've played with them a good bit, like I said, and I'm kind of ended up at 10 or 11 clicks in from full soft, full open on low speed compression, about 4 clicks in from full open on high speed compression, and about 3 clicks from full open on JCO. I originally tried them all the way open on high speed compression, and JCO and low speed compression settings were the same, but I could feel the JCOs engage relatively abruptly over long rolling bumps, and over smaller bumps it did feel kind of wooden, where it would initially compress and then feel like I was hitting a brick wall. By bringing in that high speed a little bit, normally you would think that make it stiffer, but it made the transition from low speed to high speed compression, and as well as into the JCO on big bumps, a lot more progressive, a lot more seamless. So let's take it for a little rip on our test loop here. Now, I always talk about small bump compliance, but this road is kind of chopped up and I cannot feel anything. It's like riding on an absolute cloud. Coming around this corner with this little drainage dip in it, I can take it, takes the bump. I can't even tell that there is a drainage dip there. Really, they feel almost like a cloud everywhere, but when you hit something really big, they feel essentially bottomless. We're coming into our driveway here, full rip, like it's no big deal. I mean, that is not a small driveway to come in. I didn't slow down at all. In fact, I sped up. Going over these speed bumps, it is amazing how compliant they are. Now, obviously, you can still feel them, but even on this cross articulation of it, I can pretty much take my hands off the wheel if I didn't just have to turn. I'll take you around the other way just to show you that even on a track bar car, it feels great going both directions. And just coming over here, no hands, no big deal. Now, I'm going over this next speed bump, and as you can see, it's really nothing. They really surprised me with just how plush they can be, and don't get scared about that Bilstein stiffness because it's not there if set accordingly. Now, coming down the driveway, I can't even feel the RCO engage. I don't even feel the JCO engage. I'm able to just rip right off that bad boy, and not even feel it's there. And again, that's no small little driveway. Now, hitting our simulated slalom, well, it feels amazingly tight. Now, I could bring up low speed compression for a little tighter ride, but or a little tighter handling, but I started to feel it was starting to compromise ride. So it's right where I want it to be. And with that little bit of lean, I can feel the grip kind of move around in the chassis. Even around this long rolling bend, I can accelerate through the corner and it still stays composed. And once that initial lean happens, well, brother, it is locked in. Even if you hit a bump around the corner that's pretty big, it's like nothing happens. They almost get better the harder you try to upset them. So on the street, I don't know that it can get much more plush or comfortable or composed than this. And all you guys worried about hearing the JCOs and RCOs engage, well, as you can hear, I haven't heard them engage once. You might hear some rattling from the stuff in the back, but I have not heard them make a single bit of noise. So anybody who's complaining about that, y'all tripping. Well, there's a first for everything, and this is the first time a set of shocks got me to wuss out before they found their limits. So if you want to make sure you catch all the firsts and all the fun we have here at Shock Surplus, make sure you hit like, you hit subscribe, and you hit that bell icon so you're notified of all the good stuff we be getting into. Now, let's get back to the live action. With 3 hole adjusters on these shocks and adjusters that make a huge difference with each click, setting up these 8112s can be a little tricky. So before we hit each obstacle in this test zone, we'll be making some clicks, telling you guys what clicks we make, hitting the obstacle, telling you how they feel, and if we need to be making further adjustments, we'll let you know what those adjustments are as well, because obviously they can feel very different depending on where you click your clicks. Now, setting these up, you can go about 2 different schools of thought here. You can either set them at full soft or full stiff and then adjust accordingly. And I'll be going from full soft, wide open on the adjusters and clicking them to where they want to go because I kind of have an idea of what I want. If you're not sure of where you're going to want your adjusters, watch the rest of the video. But what I like to do is set the adjusters in the middle of their settings and then adjust accordingly from there. Now, we're going to be hitting the hill climb, which is all about articulation, low speed compression and rebound control, and having the support just in case you have to bump something. So in this particular case, I'm going to be about 4 clicks in from full soft, so 4 clicks stiffer from full soft on low speed compression, and 2 clicks on high speed compression, as well as the JCO in the front. Now in the rear, JCO and high speed settings, I'm going to keep the same, but I'm going to go about 2 clicks higher, 6 clicks in on low speed compression, hopefully to try to cross jack some load on the front, make articulation more even front to rear, and hopefully get that front end working better since it is IFS and that is going to be our weak point. Now, having that little bit of JCO and high speed compression is going to mean if I find myself spinning and getting stuck, if I need to give a little whoop pow and bounce my way up something, well, I have the support to keep from fully bottoming out when I get there, but I'm not so stiff that it's uncomfortable, which is why I'm on the lower end of things. Okay, so we're on our first obstacle, the big old hill climb. If you haven't watched our videos where we're tested here before, this climb is fairly steep. It's pretty loose and it has a lot of big holes. Holes on this side, I'm taking the hard line, that are probably about as big as these 35s. So it's going to be a spectacular showing of articulation, and it's going to show how much low speed control we have and if we got those settings right. So I'm creeping up to it now in 4 low first gear. I don't want it to shift in the second, so I'm holding it. So sorry about the RPM noise. And we're going up. Now this first hole is humongous. And it walked right up it. I think we got a little lift there, but nothing too serious. And I can definitely feel the trail underneath me, so I know what's going on. But it is very composed. So it's telling me everything I need to know and nothing I don't, which is exactly what we're looking for here. Now you can see that was really a hard climb. We're almost done here, and I didn't move around all that much. So I think we dialed these settings in. I was expecting to be waving tire all over the place, but the added travel, and I think having really soft low speed compression settings in the front and a little firmer in the rear really helped keep those front tires planted. So it was pretty low drama. Now we're going to be going down the hill, which has even bigger holes. That's going to be a really good test to see if those settings are right as well. So I'm getting lined up for it. It's actually steeper than the hill climb. This is actually the real hard line here. And so we're just climbing down it. So we creep over the edge and just feel what she do. Now, yeah, cab is staying mostly flat. And we're just walking through it. Like I said, I can feel the trail underneath me, but it's not bad. Now, that was a tire lift there, but it wasn't a huge one. And I'll take that, especially on an IFS rig. Now we're coming down this next big drop, and it's no big deal. Now, these aren't the longest travel option available for these Broncos by any means, but they're set up to be a little lower, and I think that helps them in a lot of regards. And really, you know, I said it a couple seconds ago, but they tell you enough of what's going on, but not so much that you're uncomfortable. So I think I pretty much dialed it in on these settings. Now, you could easily go softer, feel less of the trail, but I think that's kind of the sweet spot for more technical things like this. And that's why these Bilsteins are so beneficial, is because you can really get it dialed in to where it's super comfortable and not uncomfortable, but you still get that little bit of communication that makes you feel like you know where you are and what you're doing. And that's really the mark of a good performance-oriented shock. So we're moving on to the next obstacle. And honestly, I thought I was going to have to make some clicks here, but I'll big brain this one, boys. All right, guys, so we're now down at the frame twister, as the name implies. It's definitely another test where articulation matters, but this little obstacle is really set up to feel more like a rutted out trail, more like what a lot of you guys might be seeing when you're exploring the forests and the deserts. I'm going to keep this sway bar connected to make it a little bit more fair for the rest of you guys. And ultimately, I think at least for this first pass, we're going to keep settings the same because I don't think I would do a lot different. This, again, is going to be a good test on low speed control to see if I'm bouncing around all over the cab and also be able to keep it online. So we're going to take the hit and see what she do. All right. Yeah, so it is a little firm for this kind of stuff. But once again, I do like that it tells me what's happening underneath me. Articulation's not really a problem here because he's got a lot of travel. But yeah, I am getting bounced just that little bit. So I think what we're going to do is go a couple clicks back on low speed compression just to show you guys how comfortable these can get. Now, ultimately, if this were me and this were my vehicle, this is exactly where I would probably be on these situations because I'm going to be hitting a little bit harder trails than this. And again, I want to know what's happening underneath me. But that's not bad at all. That is the worst part of the trail. And as you can see, it's not terrible, but I am moving around just that little bit. So we're going to take a couple clicks out of the low speed and see what she do. All right, back at the frame twister again, and we made those adjustments. The last run I was perfectly happy with for how I want a vehicle to feel, but I would understand if a lot of you guys would want something softer. So what I did here is to show you guys just how cush these shocks can get on these kinds of sections. I dropped the low speed compression in the front by 2 clicks, getting us 2 clicks from open. We were at 4, we're now at 2. And then I dropped the rear 4, so they're at 2 clicks from open as well. I still want that little bit of low speed compression support, so it's not kind of all over the place. And I think this will probably be the compromise I think a lot of you guys go with. And once again, we're sway bar on, so it's fair for you guys who don't have the disconnect like this first edition. Now, immediately, I hot rodded it into that first little bit a little too fast, but going through here, this is super comfortable, super plush. I think might have needed a little air out of these tires, but it's really just walking through it. It's really cush and comfortable. Now that I am at these softer low speed settings, they do seem to kind of take a little bit of a second bounce, but I think this is probably the compromise a lot of you guys will be looking for a little softer ride. And so, you can get these to be pretty much buttery smooth on these slow sections despite having a digressive main piston. And we're walking through the roughest section here, and I'm giving it a little bit more speed than I should, but as you can see, I'm mostly keeping it in the seat. So that's definitely a really big plus. I think for you guys who want that super soft ride, somewhere around 1 to 2 clicks from full open on low speeds, probably gonna be where you wanna be, and super solid. And then I left the same 2 clicks from full open on the high speed and the JCO. I didn't need to bump anything there, but it would have been nice to have that support if I actually did have to bump it. So we're moving on to the next obstacle. But, as we kind of thought, these 8112s are killer, but they are surprising me with how plush and composed they are at lower speeds, because when you think of these high-end shocks, a lot of times you're thinking about being able to rip in the desert, but these are doing great. But in the next couple tests, we'll show you how good they are at a little bit of speed. Okay, so we're on this little fire road here, and we like to increase speed to see what the happy point of these shocks are. Like I said, I have the low speed cranked up a fair amount just because I want it to be tight handling, just in case we get to some fairly high speeds. But that is a slippery slope because you don't want to go too stiff, because actually you can start to lose a little small bump sensitivity, especially when we have the high speed open so far. So I'm going to give it a shot here. We're going about 10 miles an hour, and it is still incredibly smooth. Right around 15, I can start to feel a little bit of the frequency, those braking bumps left by all the Rangers here. Going to 25, now 30 though, we might as well be on the road. These are very smooth. I think we could probably get a little bit more comfort by dropping the settings a little bit at those lower speeds, but if you're driving down these dirt roads at 15 miles an hour with these shocks, probably the wrong shocks for you. Now, we're stepping it up to about 35 here, and it feels even better. The tires feel really planted. They're not skipping all over the place, which is a real problem on this road. It'll want to kind of make the car dance. Let's take it up to 45. Perfect. 45, I might as well be on the 405 freeway outside of rush hour, and going up to 50 here, as smooth as glass. So it does soften with speed, similar to other Bilstein digressive shocks, which is a good thing. And we'll test this later, but I'm fairly certain that these settings handling is going to be pretty good too. Now, I'm going to loop back on this road real quick here and kind of get it going the other way, because it does show all these little braking bumps and chatter are kind of a different shape going the opposite direction. And they are a little bit chunkier. So we're back up to 25, and I think this is probably like the happy medium low speed for these, where you can kind of go this fast. It's comfortable enough. I think it could be a little bit more comfortable with the low speed backed off, but that's not something I like. I want to know what the traction is doing and what's going on the tires underneath me, because these can be a little bit of a slippery surface. That said, as you increase speed, they feel better. There is, at these particular settings on this particular road, a little medium spot between that 15 to 25 mile an hour range that isn't the most comfortable, but they still feel very, very, very good. They feel amazing, outside of those speed ranges, whether you're just creeping or going really, really, really fast. And I think that little bitty range where they are firmer, if you do want to, drive at those lower speeds, could be easily adjusted for. And the handling is so tight that I am pretty sure that if we were going faster and a turn came up, I wouldn't have issues dealing with it, or if I had to avoid an obstacle. But that's the next test, so let's get to it. Okay, so I'm checking back in real quick. That was 80 miles an hour. So you can go 80, 90, probably even 100 miles an hour down these groomed dirt roads without any sort of issue, which is pretty darn good. All right, guys, we're at the handling section. We're hitting our little chicane so we can show you how well they work. With a suspension system that can handle such high speeds, being able to actually turn and keep it online and do all those things and have stability is even more important, because if you can go 50 through a set of whoops, you also need to be able to go 50 around the corner. Now, I didn't change my settings from our washboard road run because, well, I kind of set them up for this to begin with. To tell you guys again, we're 2 clicks from full soft on high speed compression and JCO, just because we're not really hitting any big bumps, so I don't really need that extra support. Might give me a little bit more cushy ride. And then we are 6 clicks from full soft on low speed compression in the front, 8 clicks in the back. Ultimately, I have the back up a little bit more because, like I said, I want something that is a little bit more tail happy. So we're willing to rotate. I feel more comfortable with the back end stepping out from all my years of drifting than the front washing away. So that's how we have it set up. Now, I might have gone too far. I might have gone too little. Too little low speed compression means it's going to be wobbling all over the place. Too high means I'm not going to have sufficient traction to make the turn. And if the split is wrong, it might either be too tail happy or might still understeer too much. So we're going to give it a shot and see what it does. Now, this is a pretty smooth quarter. It's well maintained. Probably going to end up entering on the brakes, the little flick at around 40 miles an hour, at least 35 in third gear on this 10 speed. So we're gonna brake, flick, and it is very responsive on braking on turn in. I can feel, though, I'm getting a little bit of load up where on transition, where I'm changing direction or it's entering into the slide, it might be loading up and slapping the weight back and forth and kind of moving the car around. So what I think I'm going to do is try 2 clicks up on both the front and the rear, which I think is going to tighten things up that little bit. Ultimately, though, this might take away from some traction. So if that ends up being the case, well, we'll end up going back just because I did just make a complaint, but that was absolutely spectacular. It was really responsive on turn in. It was really controllable in the slide and wasn't too all over the place, but I could live with it being a little bit tighter so the weight doesn't shift so violently when I transition between corners. Okay, guys, so like I said on the last run, there was still a little bit of unwanted body movement. It definitely wasn't bad, but it was loading up the car in corners and wanting it to snap when I transitioned from turn to turn. So what I did was I went 2 clicks up on low speed, both front and rear. First, we're going to see if that's going to make it ride harsh leading up to the turn. Second, we're going to see if that was enough to get the body motions under control. Although really, we were super nitpicking here because it was absolutely spectacular before. And 3, if we went too far and ended up losing some traction. So let's get to it. Again, I'm going to probably enter around 35, 40-ish. Third gear. I do feel it is a little firmer over these washboard roads, but if I was specifically kind of trying to do this, it isn't bad. So in the first corner, let's just kind of break into it. All right, so yeah, that's definitely a lot better. It understeered a little bit on entry for me, but I didn't Scandinavian flick it, so that's probably on me. I should probably do the same thing every time, so we're gonna run it back. Let me just give the universal sign here. But ultimately, that felt spectacular. I was able to just hang it out and leave it hung out through the whole corner with the diff unlocked. We're open diffing right now and it's partying hard. But I didn't steer it in the same way. So we're just gonna see if I went a little too far on low speed in the front. I did do the same number of clicks, but I might have gone a little too far, which is introducing that understeer, or if that was your boy behind the wheel. Now we're coming back up to it again. I'm gonna just do some little chicanes here. Okay, yeah. That was me and not the car. So we're in at 40. And a little left foot brake on transition. Oh, I hit the lock stops. Yeah, brother, that is good. Okay, so it does still have a little understeer present, but it's a safe amount. Essentially, I was kind of pushing it a little hard, which introduced that understeer. Some of that could be alignment too, that could fix it, but ultimately the shocks more than did their jobs. Let's try just accelerating through the corner. Let me hit third gear. And yeah, they're really modular. It's really modulable or easily modulated on the throttle. Usually I like to use the brakes to kind of control things, but because I don't want to have to try to catch something as it's accelerating. But this is so composed, the body motions are so just under control. I'm having no issues trying to keep it in line, which is not something I would expect of something this tall and with this short of a wheelbase. So honestly, I've driven a lot on these Broncos. This might be the best handling option I have felt. Oh yeah, look at that. A little left foot brake, a little throttle, transition. Oh, I was a little hot on that transition, but I can really just whop and let's just flick it around. And that was an easy 180, brother. This is really, really working well. So if you were worried about handling, not only is it tight, you can dial it in for the balance that you want, get it to the point where it will rotate when, at least initially, and if you cut it too hard, well, it'll start to go into some pretty safe understeer. And you can get that setup without having a super harsh ride. And look at this. This is just a lot of fun. This is about as easy to drive as my drift cars. And that's saying a lot because that took a lot of setup time. Now, the next section is where these shocks are really meant to shine. We're gonna be smacking some whoops, making some adjustments to see just how fast we can get through our usual section. And I think we're gonna be breaking our own records. All right, so we're gonna hit these whoops, and I'm honestly gonna take a little risk here. We're gonna roll into them with a little bit of speed because I got a lot of faith in these Bilsteins. I'm using four-wheel drive just to be extra safe, but we're coming in about 35, 50. So I could basically smack those whoops at 55 miles an hour. We might have to find some harder whoops for this thing because that was absolutely no big deal. I didn't feel the tires leave the ground once, and we'll hit it going the opposite direction. It's a little rougher because the cornices are a little sharper, but brother. All right, so we got a little air there, but ultimately, holy shit. All right, so maybe these Bilsteins might have more in them than I do. I don't feel all that much, comfortable going that much faster than I just did. I mean, we clicked like 55 through foot deep whoops, and it was getting better with speed. And it was smooth as silk. This Bronco's filled with stuff and nothing hit me in the head, which is absolutely spectacular. I guess I'll do another run at it, but oh my God, nothing about the way the Bilsteins performed scared me. I was just a little scared there because we were going so fast. I don't think I've ever hit speeds like that through whoops, except for like a side-by-side. Okay, so that was our first bottom out, but those were a bigger set than these. Holy cow. I'm gonna try to use my safe words, but I'm speechless. And y'all know I can yap. Brother, that is mind-blowing. I myself own a Bronco. I've done some stupid stuff. I don't think anything I've ever done comes close to this. Holy cow. Nothing stops these things. Nothing stops them. Oh my gosh. This part of the review has to be the biggest crock of nothing of the whole review. I'm not saying all that much of value just because I am just so blown away. And it's not even that they're handling it. They're handling it so comfortably. I'm not bracing at all. I'm relaxed going through this section. And that's, You would think this thing has long travel and like a bypass secondary. It's unstoppable. And the way, so you can just feel the JCO catch. It pops the suspension up higher in the travel, and you just kind of stay in this sweet spot, just touching the JCO, just touching the RCO, nothing fully bottoming out, so nothing fully topping out. We said it before, but I guess you could just call these bottomless. I'm going to just back up one more time, and then we're done. But guys, as somebody who tests suspension for a living, I didn't think this was possible. Like these shocks could legitimately save you guys $5,000 on a long travel kit. I have driven long travel Broncos with just like regular 2.5s, and it's nowhere close to this. Like, these act like you have 15 inches of travel. I mean, coming in third gear, just wide open. What? Oh my God. Unstoppable. Absolutely unstoppable. I have never felt anything better in my life. I guess we can just end this section here, guys, because I don't feel comfortable driving any faster, but these Bilsteins aren't slowing me down at all. I guess maybe we'll try these long rollers. Okay, so that is where they find their limit, but those are like 2-footers that I hit at like 30. We're now going 55, 65. Oh my God, okay. All right, we got people ahead of us. I gotta be good. All right, so that wasn't anywhere close to their limit. They were even happier at 65. We got more suspension than we have horsepower here, guys. If you want to party hard, I can't imagine there is anything better for these Broncos. I just throw my hands up, brother. We got winners. It takes a lot to get me to shut up, but these Bilsteins really left me speechless. I was able to click 4th gear through the whoops, back it in super sideways on fire roads, and then just cruise home in absolute Cadillac comfort with Miata handling. It's taken me a little while to be able to scrape my jaw off the floor and actually come up with some coherent insight about these shocks, but between the zone control design, their huge wide range of adjustment, and really all of the development Bilstein did in getting these tuned as well as they are, I can confidently say they punch even well above their $5,600 price point. There are definitely softer sets of shocks out there, but when you set these up right, brother, they can ride smoother than my brain. And even when you dial it in so that comfort is your priority, they still have a lot more support than you might expect. So I really think they could be dialed in for just about any butt dyno or any situation. I was fully expecting a ton of high-speed off-road performance, but these shocks honestly did things that I never thought could be even in the realm of possibility for a stock width or mid-travel setup. Now, we played with settings a couple times, but by the time we ended our high-speed testing, I was still a few clicks back from full closed or full stiff on high-speed compression, JCO, and low-speed compression. So they had a lot more in them than even I did, and I think they are at the level where you start having to consider if your Bronco's got enough in it to keep up with those shocks. They don't just have the ability to take huge repetitive hits at speed, but they give you this unique feeling where it feels like the tires are actively being pressed into the ground every time the suspension tries to load up or unload. Even in the few instances where I smacked a whoop hard enough to get a little bit of air, it really felt like the shocks were pulling the earth back up to the Bronco to keep it on the ground and keep it going fast. Basically, they defy the laws of physics and are able to keep the cab flatter than I ever thought possible, recover incredibly quickly on rebound, but don't go into a pogo stick, and brother, I hardly ever felt them bottom out or top out. Now, obviously, this wasn't my Bronco, and I hadn't gotten all juiced up on Leonard Skinner before I hopped behind the wheel. So I wasn't about to find the limits. But as I was saying before, I think by the time you do find the limits, you're going to start breaking a lot of stuff. And I think there's going to be a lot of people who bolt these onto their stock Broncos and start ripping off pivots and bending axles. So if you're looking at these 8112s and you want to find the limit, something I couldn't do, you might consider basically upgrading everything connected to those shocks. You might want to upgrade your axle housing and truss it, box in those pivots, reinforce those lower control arm mounts, upgrade them as well. And brother, take care of that steering, because I really think there might be a lot of Broncos with some blown up body mounts, some bent axles, and some ripped off wheels running these shocks, because they can do things that should not be possible with a bolt-on shock setup. Now, having to upgrade everything connected to or operating in conjunction with those shocks is no cheap feat, but it's still cheaper than long travel. So these still might be a really good idea for you guys who want to really go fast, or you portal guys who don't want to have to be super tall or any wider than you already are. As good as they are at smacking whoops and catching air, they will really surprise you with how comfortable and composed they can be under more normal circumstances when adjusted accordingly. Setting them up for the speeds you're driving really is everything with these shocks, but when you get them dialed in right, they can really make washboards disappear and flatten out super technical trails while still giving you just enough feedback to know what the vehicle's doing underneath you. On the street, they can really flatten out the surface and make potholes and dips disappear, basically make it feel like you're driving on glass. But this is an area where you really got to get your settings dialed in, particularly on high-speed compression and that JCO. Originally, when I first tried them out, I had the low speed up a little higher than it needed to be, had the high speed backed all the way up, and then gave myself some JCO under the idea that I'd get a super plush ride, but if I hit something hard, well, that JCO would catch me. The problem became that it was almost a little harsh and abrupt going from the transition from the primary ride zone to that JCO engaging. Ultimately, I think the best solution is to keep it down to the first 3 settings from full open on the JCO, and then do most of your ride quality adjustments on the high-speed compression knob, at least when you're on the street. And when you get it right, brother, they're super plush, and that transition from the primary ride zone to that JCO engaging is super smooth and relatively seamless. Now, I've heard of a lot of people complaining about those JCOs making a lot of noise, and I've always said, you know, having that adjuster should mean you can back it all the way off, and since they're not doing anything, they shouldn't be making noise, but at no point did I ever hear them even make a whisper. That said, I did hear the RCO, the rebound cutoff, from time to time, or at least I think I did, but it's hard to tell because it wasn't very loud, wasn't very abrupt, and this particular Bronco had hind tie rods and billet, uniball, and hind upper control arms as well, so a little bit of clunk there is often expected. I actually kind of liked it because it was a nice little soft, gentle reminder that the shocks were getting close to topping out, or if I was in something technical, I might be waving a tire pretty soon. As you can tell, Bilstein really nailed it on these, and they know it too. If you ask them, they're pretty stoked on them. So I really think these are right for 99% of people. I think the things that will exclude you from wanting these shocks are if you want to run a 37-inch or larger tire and you don't want to mess with any hullabaloo, you don't want to do a body lift, you don't want to trim, you don't want to buy fiberglass, you don't want to do nothing. They're not going to let you do that. And if your primary purpose is rock crawling, you're never out of a rock garden, all you want is the most articulation you can get, well, there are some other options that will offer a lot more travel, particularly something like an Icon CDEV. Should offer very similar high-speed performance, although maybe not as much comfort, but a lot more travel, a lot more articulation. Otherwise, though, like I said, the vast majority of people will benefit from these and should really be considering these if they're within their budget. And talking about budget, at $5,600, definitely doesn't sound cheap on paper, but when you compare them to other position-sensitive options that they absolutely dog walk, Like the Fox 3.0s, they're considerably cheaper, last 2 to 3 times as long, and honestly give you an extra adjuster, so it's wins in almost every department. But if you're interested or you have questions about these baller Bilsteins or anything else for your Bronco or whatever else you're driving, make sure to hop on shocksurplus.com and we'll get you dialed in. And if there's something else you're looking to see, leave us a comment below and we might just cook something up. And if you haven't already, make sure you hit like, you hit subscribe, and you hit that bell icon so you're notified of all the wild stuff we're getting into next. And chances are, might be that test you asked us to get into. But in the meantime, well, brother, we'll see you out on the trails.